to our next segment. For those of you who have heard about it, you might have caught the latest craze from HBO Max, and that is their newest show, which concluded today, Peacemaker. So, John, why don't you go ahead and share your thoughts first? What did you think of Peacemaker episodes 1 through 7? Those will be spoiled, but we will have a non-spoiler overview of the finale, and then we will have about 10 minutes we'll spend on the finale itself.
I really don't.
Go ahead, episodes 1 through 7.
I don't think I'm going to do much spoiling in my initial remarks, especially for 1 through 7, because, I mean, you go from Boba Fett to this. This is the most well-crafted writing I've been watching all year, and, like, I watch everything. Almost everything. I watch everything except for what I don't like.
That'll make you successful at doing this show.
Oh yeah, right? Well, so for Peacemaker, one of my favorite things is from the first episode, we just start right where Peacemaker left off. Getting shot, after killing somebody, having to deal with emotional loss, and then we go into the intro sequence that we see here on the picture, and oh my gosh, I listened to it 3 times today because I had to go back an episode to share with my spouse what she had missed from the last episode, but I intentionally skipped ahead to the intro, finished the intro, skipped to the part that she missed, cut back to the episode today, watched the intro again because this intro song, I've never heard it before. I know it's popular 80s rock and roll, but
can you pause that thought real quick? We do have comments in the chat.
Oh, comments.
We do have from Ian So Forth. Keep it up, Papa Delta Yankee. You've got the wit and the observation. Well, thank you so much, Ian So Forth. I appreciate that. Hopefully, our takes are up to everyone's standards. Not sure what this other comment is trying to say here. If anything, I don't know if it's a bot. Hopefully, it's not a bot. Unless the bot wants to hear our overview of Peacemaker, in which case, all bots are welcome.
Just don't spam our chat. Yeah, man, the intro song, it's mostly just because, like, everybody knew John Cena was going to be this, like, brick, because all we've ever seen him in is, World War, WWE wrestling. Even, like, the movies that he does, he's not John Cena. Like if you watch Fast 9, he does a very excellent job at portraying whatever he portrays. It wasn't John Cena that played that character. I don't know how John Cena did that, but in this one, it felt like John Cena and Peacemaker are the same but different people. Like, this one really felt like, what if John Cena never got his WWE debut and became a superhero? Because he looks like exactly what everybody thought Captain America would look like. He acts exactly like what we would think Captain America would look like, with his donations, his working for just people in general. Sure, he may have a little bit skewed relationships with different places, but at the same time, he's always been a good-hearted, kind person. Even in the wrestling ring, he still tried to be clean, caring, and he respects his fans to death. And in this one, like, I didn't see John Cena in one single scene. All I saw was Peacemaker. And John Smith, whatever his name was, his secret identity, like, Peacemaker is his identity. From the moment he goes, it's a uniform versus it's my costume. Oh man, this show just blows my mind. I love it.
So the intro was very strong, and at first, I watched it the first time, and I wasn't sure what I was watching. So when it ended, I was like, okay, I like where this is going. I like where this show could possibly go. And after watching all the follow-on episodes, it's over the top. It's vulgar. It's ridiculous. But man, what a ride! I mean, all the way through. By the time I got to the third episode, I was like hitting the volume button when that's how excited I was to watch another episode. And it's got great characters. Everybody plays off each other very well. It's very well acted, and I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to season 2. And as far as episodes 1 through 7 go, I think what James Gunn did very poignant overall. In that, with the writing, he seemed to use a lot of mainstream talking points, but not to really get all out things of both sides. And I think that was very well done overall, because here we have a show about a team. I mean, you look at the cast, it's diverse, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Good characters and good story, you can have all the diversity you want. And that's what this show did. Was they just cast a bunch of great actors that I thought every single person and I liked it. I loved it. It's ridiculous. It's stupid in a lot of ways, but it's also very intelligent. And it seems like James Gunn was people don't like John Cena. That's fine. I'm a fan myself. However, I will say that he
We are
about that you've got to separate.
Hold on. I don't want to interrupt you. We are experiencing first day blues. You're coming in and out pretty regularly, and I don't know why, but it seems like your
I
mic
don't
is...
either. I checked the volume. Let me put the auto volume back on. Or
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. It just like puts you in an ice cream can for some reason.
okay, how's that?
It seems consistent. I just say watch
Okay.
your overall
Oh, you know what?
volume.
This is how they're gonna. There's only so much.
It's first day. First day. I'm not ashamed. I don't want to bring shame on you. I'm just telling you so that our fans don't feel like we're not caring about it.
Please bear with us. Episode, we're not
Episode
exactly.
one of one is well, it's a start.
It's a start. Hey, at least we're doing it. We put our pants on today, so that's. Just keep monitoring the volume and let me know how it sounds. So what I'm saying is the show is diverse, but that's not the point of the show. Unlike what it seems like a lot of modern television seems to be doing, is diversity. And then we go characters, and it seems that when you put the objective at the top, that's not how good writing goes. So when I wrote my book, I started with characters. The rest of it just kind of flowed from that. And that's what you want to do as a writer. And that's what I think James Gunn did was he was like, let's do the diversity thing, but I want to write a story that's a good story, and I want characters that people like. And I actually like all the characters. Like, I really feel that the show does a good job of making you, the audience, a part of it, because yes, there's people who don't like John Cena. And again, it's okay if you don't like John Cena. It's just a good friend to separate the douchebag from the character. Okay? From the crowd.
I don't think John Cena is a douchebag. I think,
and that's fine. You don't have to.
And I think this is something that's actually very important to point out, just in terms of his character as a person. He's not a douchebag by any means. Like, a lot of people call him a bully. Like, and I think that's something that this show really points out. Is like, Peacemaker was mostly a bully because nobody taught him anything different. And whether it was his dad, whether it was his job, whether it was his belief on life, the whole show just shows this kid who grew up in a backwards town with backwards beliefs existing today. And he was raised to be a killer, so obviously he's going to be a good killer. Right? Especially when he has zero moral compass. Like, a lot of us think that everybody grows up with moral guidance, but like 90% of us don't. 90% of the world has no idea what good morals look like, and the only reason we know what good morals look like is because we don't often see bad morals win. And that's why I give credit to John Cena, because he has always been good morals. While he doesn't necessarily align with everybody's ideology, you can bet your ass he's nice to every one of his fans. And he's nice to everybody he meets for no reason. He's rich. He could be the douchebag you think he is, but instead he's like, no, I love you. I'm here for you. I will support you. He does make a wish more than anybody I know of. And I
Yeah,
think that's important to note, is that yes, he may deviate from your ideology. He's still trying to be nice. And whereas Peacemaker, the character that he portrays, deviates dramatically from the majority of our ideologies, he was raised in a world that deviates even more from his own character's ideology. And that's something that we have to like give credence to. Is this show is about a really strong person being 100% mentally and emotionally weak. And it's about him figuring out how to do that. And the only way he can do that is through talking out what he thinks right is. If you ignore people's chance to be wrong about what they think is right, man, dude, you're going to have a lot of ignorant people on both sides, because nobody's going to know anybody that says the wrong thing, because nobody
well,
wants to.
and the thing is, for me personally, with John Cena, it's not so much that I hate the guy, or I don't hate anybody. I just don't have respect for him, and I don't have respect for him because of his, you know, maybe it's not so much the fact that he made that apology to China, but it's the way he did it was pathetic. If he had just said, "Hey, I'm sorry.
I
I'll try to be, I didn't mean to
Again,
offend anyone. Get
I'm
over
gonna throw
it."
this one back at you. The reason I disagree is because he wasn't apologizing to America. He did it all in Chinese because he was respecting the fans that he has in China. Whether or not we like the way that he got his fans, whether or not we appreciate the fact that he has fans in China, he, the man, appreciates his fans. And he is not a politician. He is not a governor of any state. He has no relationship with the American regime. So therefore,
No,
he
but
can
he's got a
apologize to
relationship with
his
his own
fans.
self-respect that he needs to work on,
And he
and that's really what it comes
apologized
down
to
to. And
his
and
Chinese fans because of their Chinese beliefs. In Chinese. He didn't do it in English. He didn't apologize to the Americans because of his words. He didn't apologize to America because of his words. He apologized to his Chinese fans for their Chinese beliefs because he's a respectful person. Again, that's why I think he really
again,
is a good guy.
well,
He
you be careful about conflating, respect with trying to keep your revenue going.
He's respectful. No, that's
No,
what I mean. Because if he really cared only about his revenue, he would have publicly gone out in English and said, "Hey, Americans, we all need to apologize to China."
well,
But he
and let's
didn't.
be
He said, "To my
let's be
Chinese fans, I'm sorry."
let's be rational about this, though. He is. Uh, we don't know him personally. Neither you nor I have had the chance to sit down and have a beer. And I'm not opposed to having a beer and having my mind changed about someone. A lot of our opinion only comes from what they put on camera. And again, that's why it's important to separate the person, John Cena, from the character Peacemaker, because they're two separate people. And that's what a lot of people have started to realize, thankfully, but not too soon. And actually, this segues into a separate sort of discussion here. People need to separate the character from the person with everything. Going back to Star Wars briefly, the way that Kelly Marie Tran was treated on social media was unacceptable, and you can't go after actors like that just because you don't like a character that they portray. That's not. First of all, they're just doing their job. At the end of the day, that's
They
what all
didn't
these
write the
actors
script.
do. Right. They didn't write it. I mean, you take your anger out on Ruin Johnson, that's perfectly fine. He's the one who wrote the story, and he's the one who wrote the character, and the actor can only work with what they're given.
And take it
So,
to even another universe. Take it into Game of Thrones. The actor, the child actor who played King Joffrey, has abandon acting because of the way people treat him because of his portrayal.
That's not entirely the case. He was already planning to retire anyway because he didn't want to be an actor his whole life. He was a child actor who, by the time he did Joffrey,
But he was
decided to retire. But
solidified
he did
by
get
the
unnecessary
backlash.
flack and death threats, and I agree with that. Yeah, that's inappropriate. And
Stop
that's
sending death threats. You're weak-minded. If you can't explain your feelings in a real, honest opinion, don't explain them.
well, and there's no reason to be disrespectful to people. You know, we're not doing these reviews because we want to just be a negative voice in the void, tearing apart, John Favreau and Dave Filoni and John Cena. It's
And that's
we take an analytical view and we just give a real perspective, and that's what we're about here. But we're
But I
also
think
about
that's
respecting the
also why we
craft.
challenge each other. That's why I'm challenging you and saying that
Right.
John Cena, and I'm saying this more for the fans, but like I honestly do believe that John Cena, a lot of his work, whether it's with the USO, whether it's with Make a Wish Foundation, and everything he does, people since the moment he walked on stage in WWE, he was the white boy douchebag that everybody imagines. Even to this day, you may not think of his face, but his persona, long jorts. That was his number one outfit, was long jorts and a slightly canted hat. Like the number one thing that says douchebag. And
Yeah, well, and that was even a character too. And once what a lot of people
exactly,
forget
and
is that
that's
WWE was scripted, so those guys were all actors too.
and that's why I say that this show is like really, it is a little bit meta in the terms that like you get to see a guy who looks like John Cena, who you automatically think is America's douchebag. Listen to the history of America as it's going on in his world. Like his dad was 10x Iron Man, and he was super racist, like hyper racist. And the show even let the character play that. You're not going to hate the actor that did that for his character because one,
Absolutely
you've heard
not.
that actor forever be a good person too, but when you see him play that viciousness and you watch John Cena fight him, but when you hear his dad, even as his dad is getting his ass whooped by his son, his dad is still a prideful hubris. It like, to me, that shows the world that John Cena's character Peacemaker grew up in. Is his dad is getting his butt whooped by his son, and his son is still getting talked down to by a guy who is verifiably worthless. And that to me, I think that's what this show really, really tells you, is that like even when you go after the bad guy who is very obviously the bad guy still thinks he's the good guy, even if it's the son killing his dad. And I really think this one did an opposite effect of Star Wars, where we learn that Luke and Darth Vader are related, and Darth Vader has emotional feelings for his son that he never knew he had because he never knew he existed. But even the 3 or 4 hour relationship that they accumulate, he can't stop feeling that. And it's whether it's the forced love or whatever mystical force out there that causes us to have those kinds of feelings. You notice that in this show, Peacemaker is crying while he's beating his dad. He's crying after he killed his dad. And yet, his dad doesn't care. And some kids grow up with that dad. And I think that's something this show really, really strives to point out, is like you can hate people for their thoughts, but maybe they would hate themselves too if they got the chance to actually understand why their thoughts are bad.
Right. And that's kind of what's tragic about any character like that is like, some of us want to see the best and even the worst in people. And I think that's what I liked about Spider-Man was that was the theme of that movie was you had these villains and just overall bad people that Tom Holland thought that they could be redeemed. And well, if you see the movie, you know how that resolved and how that played out. And so while yes, it's great that one way or the other, the bad guy was stopped and he was more or less justice. That was probably long overdue. It's still sad because it should have never have had to be that way in the first place. And that's where that's why he's sad, because it's his dad that he has to kill, but it's his dad who's just was a waste of an existence of a human. And that's what's really the big sad about all of it. Is when someone bad dies, sure, there's a sense of justice, but for the people that are connected, that's still a human life that had value to somebody, even though
not only
life worth valuing.
Not only is it a human life that had value, it's a human life that had potential to not be that. And let's not forget that this is a character who's a member of the Suicide Squad, which is meant to be the worst villains or villain henchmen of all of DC Comics history. So Peacemaker's supposed to be a racist pile of garbage. And this show is about showing him and that's what this show is showing, is that like even the convicted failure can be taught to be better, but obviously he's not going to learn it in an episode. And he didn't even learn it the whole season. Like, he figured out his dad was bad, and he didn't kill his dad because his dad was like bad to the world. He killed his dad because his dad was bad to him. His dad promised to chase him down and kill him, and he already had no real moral argument with killing things until he started meeting good people who had a moral argument with it. Before that, his friend Vigilante is like, yeah, let's kill anything and everything. And still, Vigilante had no moral change, no emotional change. He's 100% sociopath as far as I can tell, and I am not a doctor, so that is a judgmental opinion. And I think that's what was super important, is like Vigilante never even cared about killing about race. He just liked to kill, and he wanted to kill for what he thought was good, and according to him, good was the law. And that's another critical flaw that this show just pointed out, is that Vigilante, according to Justice and Peace, was carrying out justice and peace by killing people who break the law. And that's why this show just brings me so much joy, even though it is so aggressive.
Well, and it really, I definitely, I actually felt like I related a lot in a lot of ways to my old self, to John Cena, but I also felt I related to I think I pronounced her name right. I have bad trouble with name pronunciation.
Adebayo?
I think Adebayo. Was it Bio or Adebayo?
Yeah,
Adebayo. I liked that character a lot because she was, first of all, a great actress, I must say. I was very impressed with her performance overall. But she was that sort of moral compass to help see the worst or see the best in bad people. Now, she did have her limits. She did not like Peacemaker's father, and for good reason. However,
she didn't say go kill him.
What?
She wasn't like Vigilante, who was like, oh, he's a bad guy, let me kill him. Instead, she was, like one of us.
She was more concerned with Chris's well-being and trying to have Chris cut out the toxic relationship. You're right.
She was respectful
she wasn't interested in violence to solve the problem.
Her morality showed through her approach to Chris in every way. But continue. I want to also give her praise. She was basically, that she was portrayed perfectly.
She was the character that we still kind of try to want to be, not always resorting to, people don't resort to killing these days usually, but not resorting to just going to the violence, but to try and be diplomatic, to try and find where the good is in the worst of people, and try a lot of what their whole relationship goes on a pretty wild roller coaster throughout. I mean, man, for what James Gunn put in 8 episodes is impressive. A lot of the message that he put in this show was actually pretty good.
There's so many sub-narratives, so many just little notes like, hey, look, our world is messed up in every way. It's not exactly anybody's fault, but it is everybody's responsibility.
More or less, yeah. And that's what I think this show goes, look, here's all these people from these different backgrounds, and yeah, they hate each other, but by the end, they like each other enough to get the job done. And that's what always makes team stories always have a special place in my heart, because it's not just one, badass running around killing everybody. It's everybody plays their part. Everybody has a role to making the mission a success. And so, essentially, write it correctly, as James Gunn did with this show, everybody wins. And when everybody wins, most everybody's happy, except for a few idiots that are either trolling for relevance or
I don't want to
have nothing better to do.
I don't want to take any credit away from any of the other writers that helped James Gunn, all the assistants.
I don't think there was any assistant writing with the show.
This may sound like crowd service and fan service, but to me, I think it's really important. As somebody who often plays the role of backroom helper, I think James Gunn executed the plan perfectly, but I think of him more as a manager of the product. He superseded the direction.
No, he wrote the show. He wrote all the episodes.
And whether or not he did, he still had staff that helped him. The actors and actresses played their parts according to his guidance, and they executed amazingly. And I think that's something to note, is that whether he was the main writer who wrote every single word, or there was an editor who edited all the words that he wrote, or I don't know. And I don't want to assume. And I also know that a lot of people that do work don't get credit. But at the same time, I want to show those people credit. I want to show the whole production team. Like, anybody who worked on this project, this is what the fans call good. If you go to any product, if you go work on your next project, whatever you do next, take whatever you learned from this and keep it forever. Because with this product that you all produced, every person who put any effort into this product, all of you produced quality in every sense of the word.
Yeah, everybody who worked on this show did their job. And to answer your question here, I'm going to put the IMDb on. Looks like Pat Boyette and Joe Gill are also the other two that you want to possibly think. I can't tell if they wrote anything for this episode, but looks like it's based on their characters at least. So,
shout out to them. Shout out to the whole team. Shout out to the people that made everybody comfortable while they did all this freaking work. Every job is a job.
Food caterers and grips. Absolutely. Cheers.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is a high quality. I mean, Book of Boba Fett, admittedly, is a quality production, but that's just it. This is a top-notch quality production overall. Production value was on point. The opening sequence was on point. The music selections were on point. The actors were on point. Everybody played off each other well, and you believe the story. I mean, it takes place maybe over 3 or 4 days, but these people go from hating each other to almost loving each other, it seems. And that's what I was saying earlier about John Cena. Absolutely, I'll give the opportunity to sit down and have a beer and have a conversation with the guy, because I don't know him personally. So it isn't fair to me to be totally judgmental. And yeah, I don't know. The show, thankfully, the show, basically, I don't see him as 100% douchebag, just 85% now.
And that's the power of the show, because John Cena's played in so much. I've seen 85% of his movies, anything that he's even just done a glimpse in, and he's okay. I've never really thought of him as a strong actor, but I watched this show, and I was telling you earlier today, man, I 100% intend on watching every episode in a row again, because whether or not I missed anything, that freaking intro dance kills me every time. And John Cena reps that harder than anybody who was that possibly awkward. That is the most awkward, clearly choreographed, clearly silly dance. And he maintained character the entire time. All of the cast did. And to me, I really thought for some reason everybody was going to become a butterfly. I say we should probably give this spoiler alert for season or episode 8 now.
No, let's
in
hold off
case I
a little
say
bit.
something wrong.
We still got a few more minutes for this segment to go. So
this is a premature spoiler alert, just in case I say anything wrong about this episode. So if you want to pause for I'll give it 30 seconds. I got 30 seconds worth of words to say.
Yeah,
I really thought everybody was either going to become a butterfly or die, and I was really surprised who died.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we'll get to the episode 8 overview here shortly. But it's just mostly speaking for the first 7 episodes. I mean, every single episode was a ride, and I didn't feel that there were any dull moments. And that's probably one of the biggest things about Book of Boba Fett in contrast is I'm never going to watch Book of Boba Fett again. I will probably watch Peacemaker Season 1 again, at least at some point, whether or not it's before Season 2 comes out or whether or not it's just because I feel like it or in the future or it's 5 years from now or whatever. There is replay value with Peacemaker. I mean, there's a lot of funny jokes and one-liners that this show came up with.
Yeah.
That are honestly some of the most absurd yet hilarious one-liners I've ever heard in any show lately. And while some of them were a bit obscene, I mean, especially the well, we're talking a little bit about episode 8 spoilers, but it's not really a spoiler, it's just a line of dialogue. When Harcourt calls John first as Peacemaker as Schwarzenegger. Like, that was a nuclear burn from orbit. I didn't laugh as hard as I did with some of the other jokes because I was just like, wow, Schwarzenegger. That's one of those insults that would just stick with me forever.
That's one of those inside jokes that
especially
obviously
if I was
because they're so famous isn't an inside joke. Like, obviously, yeah, exactly. Like, every bodybuilder would feel that burn 100%. And so when John Cena gets that call out, oh man, that's so funny. And the reason I keep calling him John Cena is I'm really bad with names, so I hop between all of them.
I mean, everyone should know who you're talking about, at least.
Yeah.
Peacemaker is John Cena. If you don't remember the other actors or their names, I mean, I don't think that's.
I don't remember anybody's names. I know Adebayo, Economos. Oh my god, he did so well, especially in episode 8. That's why I'm trying not to say anything
you
crazy.
About the finale already?
Not yet. It's just the one that's burned in my mind right now. But Vigilante's character, oh man, he was so funny from the first time you see him, to the time you meet him a couple times. You're pretty sure you know who he is before he finally takes off his mask. But at the same time, oh man, I just thought the way they did that was so funny.
Yeah,
and
no, his social awkwardness. I mean,
it wasn't even awkwardness. It was social ineptitude. He was 100% ignorant of social cues.
He just doesn't get it.
Oh man, season 8 spoilers. I'm not gonna say it. I'll bring it up in a minute, but
yeah, no, we'll 7 minutes. We'll transition to the episode 8 discussion.
The thing about Economos, as far as a character going through, he was going through the inverse character growth of John Cena's character. Whereas Peacemaker is this very verbose, easily, he'll say anything that angers everybody because in a movie he saw it work once, and so he thinks it's a normal line for a guy like him to say. Whereas Economos is I'm not going to say anything because I'm pretty sure somebody's going to yell at me or hurt my feelings. And we watch Economos just grow to the point that he stands up for himself in a very real way, and everybody's oh, that's why he's actually hurt. Because we're mean to a guy we don't know anything about except for what he does for us.
Well,
and
but he also
you as the viewer are oh, maybe a lot of the jokes against him were really mean, and I was also aiding to the bullying. And I think that's another thing the show does, is it allows you to feel like a bully.
Well, and that's the thing about his character too, is he kind of also brings it on himself though. And that's kind of the lesson to learn from him, is he doesn't
brings
you know,
it on
people
himself.
make fun of him, but he doesn't at any point
But
bother to address it. He just responds with
is
more
that
sarcasm
bringing
and
it
cynicism.
on yourself? Like, if we're supposed to treat others how we want to be treated, he is very much treating others how he wants to be treated. He's very timid. He wants people to be direct but nice, firm but once, and quiet. And that's all he ever delivers at any point. He never yells at anybody. He's always like, I just want everything to be chill around me. And so he's treating all of his teammates the way he wants his teammates to treat him. Because we see him when he fights Judo Master. He is angry, vicious, and he actually brings out his bulk. And I think that's something that,
Yeah.
like, I didn't even notice until we're having this discussion.
Well,
But if you look
he
at
has
him,
a
he's
couple of
bigger than John Cena.
he has a couple of badass moments too that you don't expect. But if you watch the first
Exactly.
couple
But his
episodes,
friends bully him.
no,
He's
they
he's
do,
a
but he
warrior
responds to it with more insults though. It's
because he's
not just
treating them how he wants to be treated.
no, he doesn't. He responds to them with the same sarcasm and
No,
cynicism
he says,
that
"Why do you
they're
call me
treating him with.
Diebeard? Why are you calling me that? I want you to call me Economos." He says it. He says what
says
he
that.
wants, and but he's not like, he's not vicious because he's working with vicious people. So he knows that if he gets into a vicious contest, he'll lose because of his morality. And I think that's something to
I think,
highlight, is that, like, nobody brings
yeah,
anything on themselves.
we don't agree here because
People are just mean.
You need to go back and watch episode 1. He's not like I can't remember the character's name from Parks and Rec who's like always hated, but he's so nice all the time. That's not the case.
Gary,
with Economos
Jerry,
at all. He is
Terry,
Larry.
Pick
Yeah,
a name, something Gurgich.
he's not. That's not the case here at all.
No,
He is
yeah,
just
I'm not
as much
saying I'm
like
not saying
the
he's a
thing is.
perfect guy either.
No,
I'm
well,
just
that's
saying
it.
that, like, he portrays the kid who got bullied, and even though he's basically 7 feet tall and twice the size of John Cena in weight, he is still dealing with all of the trauma of being bullied his whole life. And that's the character he portrays, is a kid who's used to being bullied, and though he's always had this size, he doesn't want to hurt his friends with his size. And so he tries to hurt his friends with the same words they throw at him, and he's bad at it because he never wanted to be good at it. And I say all of this because that's the character I witnessed, and that's what I mean by, like, an ode to any writer who put any effort into any of these characters, any actor, and anybody who did anything with these characters. Is I'm not talking about the actor that plays Economos. Like, when I talk about John Cena and Peacemaker, to me they're one and the same with different backstories. But the character who played Economos, or the actor who played Economos versus the character who's Economos, I only see the character that's Economos, and that's why I'm standing up for an imaginary character. Like, I want our fans to know that, like, that's the kind of emotion you get from this show. You stand up for a guy that doesn't exist. It's wild.
Well, and like I said, the character is very, he's kind of trying to stand up for himself. He's just trying to get through the assignment. But I mean, no, I'd say he's got his short. I mean, all the characters have their failures. But as far as John Cena being Peacemaker goes, I felt that this movie was that, this show was. Was supposed to be John Cena sort of putting himself out there for the world to see, crying to himself, singing the song. There's the part where he plays, I can't remember the song title off the top of my head, but he's playing that on the piano, and he actually played that too. That was
he ripped it. I was losing my mind. That was so quality.
Yeah. So I think this was his way. I think James Gunn gave him the opportunity to be like, look, you can try to rebrand yourself a little better with people. Now, of course, there's always going to be haters sometimes. So there's no getting away from that. However, yeah, I'm definitely a little more, I'm not going to go out of my way to meet John Cena. However, I'm not going to necessarily avoid him either. So that's how much the show changed my perspective on John Cena. All right, we're coming into the last 20 minutes of this segment, or 20 minutes of this segment. So we are going to go ahead and
Spoiler
to the
alert.
episode 8 discussion.
Spoiler alert.
This is the spoiler alert portion of the podcast. So for about the next 20 minutes, if you haven't watched episode 8 yet and you don't want it ruined, go ahead and just...
I'm just going to give it 30 seconds, and then from there, we'll cut it off at exactly an hour and 10 minutes.
I think we're gonna, hour and 10, hour 15. We're gonna transition to Lost Ark.
Well, no, let's pick a time so our fans know when to come back. Oh yeah, follow the banner.
But I'm gonna go ahead and let you start the episode 8 discussion.
All right. So throw up that banner. Spoiler alert. When the banner drops, that's for sure when it's over. If you miss some remarks, I'll make sure that I don't let you, and I'll make anybody restart their thought. So I just, like, when I talked a second ago about vigilante just not understanding social cues, my greatest evidence point is the end scene in the episode 8, like after the credits, and he goes like, yeah, could you just like announce when you're gonna be sarcastic? Like, sarcasm, I don't think your beard looks dyed. Sarcasm, I don't think you look fat and unhealthy. And Economos responds, hey man, that's really mean. And he goes, sarcasm, I don't think you eat an unhealthy amount of potato chips that no man should ever eat. Not sarcasm, I really am concerned about your future life endeavors. And then Economos goes, oh. just shrugs it like, oh, he's being mean, sure, but at the same time he actually cares in his own way. That's the kind of level that the writer, James Gunn, if you did all of this, like, Jesus, the reason I don't want to give you all the credit is just because, like, that's too much. That's too much, like,
well,
intuition. That's too much knowledge of your characters and what they're supposed to represent to you.
So
if you did it well fucking done.
There is kind of a sort of little known portion of production that people don't really, unless you're on an actual set, people don't know this. And that is, your actors typically know how to ad-lib, and so what you so not while you can tell the lines of dialogue that are James, obviously James Gunn wrote it. Actors will sometimes, whether they mistake or they do it on purpose, they'll change lines in the middle of a shot of a scene, because either they think it'll go over better, or that's more comfortable for them, or they just forgot what they were supposed to say, and so they make it up.
If I can pause you for a second, I can tell you the most insane literary failure that has changed everybody's life forever, and that is that Sean Connery butchered the original order of a not a mojito, the other one, martini. The classic martini, shaken, not stirred. That's the way you make a martini. What he was supposed to say was stirred, not shaken, because that was James Bond's niche according to the books. And Sean Connery butchered that to the point that all of us, anytime we ever order a martini, say shaken, not stirred. And that is literally how you make a martini. And I think that's so funny. So yes, continue your point.
Well, yeah, that was my point, actually. That was an excellent point to build off of, was the fact that that's how it goes. Is actors sometimes brains don't quite read words the same. I mean, but sometimes for some reason we memorize things backwards, or we just say it because it sounds better to us. And so, yeah, a lot of the one-liners I'm pretty sure were James Gunn, but I do think saw with that sarcasm comment might have even been a totally improv.
And that could be because, like, they did save it for the end credit scene, but they didn't call it a blooper, which it could have technically been a blooper.
Yes, it could have been.
And in that instance, like, you're like, if it was a blooper, that's the most clever blooper for the character, not the actor. Like, the guy who played Vigilante, I don't know if he's autistic, but I know for a fact he played a very well done autistic person. because he had no understanding of social cues, but he understood how to be strong and tough. He was 100% accustomed to bullying, and his character, like his secret identity, or whatever you call it, I can't remember. His public persona was 100% like okay with being bullied, and that's why he put on the mask. Was that he was like, look, I can't kill my bullies as me because I'll go to jail, but I can put all of the bullies in the ground with this mask on. And we have to remember that like a lot of these characters are supposedly listening to Batman and Avengers, or not Avengers, Justice League actually on the news. So they're actually inspired, and this is like Vigilante's approach to justice. But again, his only justice is the law, and that's where like Adebayo, who is literally the definition of black ops, dark super secret CIA character, daughter. So she has the moral compass of the rest of us, but she grew up with the moral compass of, whatever the CIA considers morality. And you see that conflict, but you see it like, it's weird. I thought for the longest time, especially based off of what school teachers told me and everything, is they said that like most actors can't portray what writers put on paper. So like you can't portray Shakespeare in a movie. And to them I say, somebody proved you wrong, because like Adebayo, she really felt like a normal person struggling with a very obscure issue. But her monologues, her diatribes, her just anytime she was like told to have emotion, I felt like I was watching my friend suffer. And that's, to me, like it's an element of like dirty because, she's fake. But also like, well, frickin' done to the writers, again, to the actors, the actresses. And when I say actors, I'm bad with titles. I don't mean anything to say that men are better than women in their art. I just put it all under one generic term, actor. I don't get why there's separation, because all of these people deserve all of the money. Like if Friends was making 1.5 million an episode, this show deserves 10.10 million an episode because it's phenomenal.
I mean, it's also still got to grow a base. I mean, it's probably going to come in a lot stronger in season 2 as people watch the replay.
And that's why I said Friends in general.
Action.
Because I really believe that Peacemaker is just going to become its own spin-off. It's going to be its own universe within the universe. It's got the potential to go. It's got the potential to go two ways. It's either going to go resounding success, every season is going to be a smash hit, or it's going to go the way of Rick and Morty, and they're going to go too ridiculous over the top. But I don't know. I think we didn't even see anything ridiculous.
Because
the
James
most we saw was that freaking torpedo helmet. Sorry.
James Gunn did the Suicide Squad. And objectively, the Suicide Squad is a good movie. It passes. It stands on its own. It's not for me because I didn't like the over-the-top realistic violence. Or hyper-realistic cartoon violence is what I say. And so that's why I was hesitant I was like, it's James Gunn, it's John Cena, it's probably going to be stupid violent. And there were moments violent, but that wasn't the main feature of the show. I felt Suicide Squad had a lot of over-the-top violence, whereas this show did it appropriately. It was balanced out. It was, during the fight scenes, they were pretty, he runs around with them and shit. Any show or movie that portrays a guy that uses swords and you don't see limbs go flying, that's entirely unrealistic to what happens.
You have to be a master swordsman with a masterly crafted sword to cut a limb off in one stroke.
Yes, but even then, it's still going to be bloody and gross, whether or not you get a clean cut. And so I think, as far as best characters go, Adebayo was definitely up there.
Well, I don't even want to do a best characters for this show because each character portrayed their archetype perfectly.
All the actors did good, but
no, I don't even say actors. I say like really the characters. Like Adebayo doesn't mean anything in terms of like what Peacemaker brought to the team. Heartmaker does, or I can't remember her name. Hardcore doesn't overpower Peacemaker, doesn't overpower Vigilante. Economos doesn't affect hardly anything, and that I think is such a crazy thing to see in a
Economos is
team
like the
comment.
backbone of the team.
No,
He's
but
the
I mean
guy
in terms of
who
like, his character does, like, you can't get rid of any of these characters. Even
No,
Mern,
you can't.
even
Absolutely
Mern,
not.
who died at the end, like, you know that this team is limping because he's lost, because his character was dealing with a whole different set of emotional problems that we didn't even know about until an episode before he dies. And that, I think, is the thing this show really like teaches us, is that like, you want to say you're the main character in your show, but even the main character has no fucking clue about his teammates. And that's why I dropped
Okay,
the
there goes our
I'm-
one F-bomb for the stream.
and I'm dropping it there because I really want the intensity to come off. I really do believe that like this show portrayed how teams actually operate. Like, while Peacemaker thinks he's, you know, the master of everything, he is the icon, he's the name of the show. The team is, if he's off the team, it struggles. If he's on the team, it struggles. But if he's off the team itself will eventually figure it out to some degree. But if he's on the team, he has to be respectful of his teammates. He has to understand his teammates. He has to get to know his teammates. And I think that's something that like this show really does, is it takes the time for teammates to have tension. And like, it was prejudiced, right? Because Peacemaker's a prison, like he was a killer. He was in prison. He's part of the Suicide Squad, the group that's meant to be expendable. And Adebayo, who works for the woman who created the Suicide Squad, is like, yeah, but what if I could fix this racist POS? And she tries, and she doesn't do it well, because she still, betrays him. She still takes advantage of his trust because she thinks it's the right thing to do, even though she knows it's the wrong thing to do. Because sometimes we think we know what right is, and sometimes we feel what right is, and we still do what we assume is right. And that's what this show really shows, is that like a team is not as strong as its weakest link. Everybody is weak in some part of the team. Everybody has their own weakest link. The person is only as strong as their weakest link, and they're only as strong as they're willing to fix that weak link. Because like you don't fix weak links on accident. You fix them on purpose.
Well, and a weak link also has to want to be fixed as well. That's a very important thing to remember, is that you can't fix somebody who doesn't want to be fixed either. So at some point you just gotta, figure out how much it's worth investing in someone. But yes, Adebayo is a very good character. Definitely someone to be inspired by. I mean, they all are in their own way. Vigilante's questionable. But with that, we're going to conclude Peacemaker. I'm excited for season 2. I think season 2 will be great, but I think we're going to go ahead and move on